And we are live.
Good morning, everyone. It's the one, the only V, the notorious, glorious Simeon Ape himself. And I'm with my main man, El Cuco, aka CJ, aka the master of the flux capacitor. And we bring you the news, the views, and all the information important to you. Check us out, roguemoney.net. Follow us on Twitter at the Rogue Money and Rogue Money Facebook, DTube. Steam it, every single podcasting app known to humanity. We are everywhere you want us to be in a bag of chips. Also, check out our sponsors, RemainCom.net. RemainCom.net. If you got a problem, you got collectors, call RemainCom. Let these guys help you. Also, guys, check out thecryptoschool.io. Thecryptoschool.io. Learn how to trade cryptocurrencies. Learn about cryptocurrencies, all in the one-stop shop, thecryptoschool.io. And also, guys, do you want some delicious wake-up juice? Do you need some wake-up juice in the morning? Your regular cup of coffee ain't cutting it for you? Maybe you're getting too much jitters. Maybe you want to have your cup of coffee and have something sweet alongside with it. You need to go to mycbdedibles.com. mycbdedibles.com. Siege, you're drinking that coffee right now, aren't you?
Yeah, it is. It's absolutely delicious. We went with a little bit darker roast this time with it, and it gives it just a much more
You need
smooth.
to send me some, man. I got to order some dark roast from you.
Yeah, I will. And for our listeners, check it out. Beginning tomorrow morning, we'll be launching a 4th of July promotion. So we'll be having buy one, get one free on select items. So make sure to check it out tomorrow. Buy one, get one free.
That's going to be awesome. Wow.
Yeah. It's 4th of July. It's America's Independence Day. So yeah, we want to celebrate and encourage people to try some of our products. And reviews have been tremendous. We've been participating in this hemp economic disruption tour here in the Midwest. And it was just great to get so much feedback regarding our product. So, just very little bit as far as like, hey, may want to consider decaf coffee for those with, high blood pressure and all that kind of stuff. But hopefully with some CBD, they could correct that. But yeah, so check it out, mycbdedibles.com.
Absolutely. mycbdedibles.com, folks. Go there, do it. Support the cause, mycbdedibles.com. My man, with that being said, see, there's so many things going on. I had a list of topics, man.
Yeah, we did.
That's that old Rush Limbaugh thing. See, I was a kid listening to. See, I grew up on talk radio. People don't realize that. Most kids were watching TV. My entertainment was Bob Grant. Bob Grant on WWOR back in the talk radio days. That's how I grew up. I listened to Bob Grant, and then when he was gone, it was Rush Limbaugh. That's how I got my start. So I would listen to Rush every morning, do one of these things with the paper. So, see, I got a list of topics in, right, that I set up for both of us. And you and I always combine topics. What we're going to talk about tomorrow, and we just kind of put it together, But this morning, folks, the Gorilla is a, recent subscriber to the Wall Street Journal. Not because I think it's the greatest newspaper in the world or anything like that, but sometimes there's intel there. And there's intel there that allows you to skim the headlines and kind of read in between the lines. So if you have the right perspective, then you can get a good gander on what the hell's truly happening. So when I went out this morning with my cup of joe and I picked up the paper that was sitting on my porch, I opened it up, took it out of its plastic, and I unfolded it. And lo and behold, right on the front page. See, you and I last week, we were talking about how Deutsche Bank failed. And Dr. Jim Willie was also talking about it as well, how Deutsche Bank failed the stress test. Right? And what the significance of that is. And we've always wondered, how come how come JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs and some of these big American banks haven't failed any sort of stress tests? I was always wondering about that, Siege. I was always wondering about that. And then lo and behold, right here, front page, Wall Street Journal. Right, this article is by Liz Hoffman and Lolita Clausel. Morgan Goldman got help from Fed on tests. Morgan and Goldman got help from Fed on tests. Siege, let me ask you something, man. in the history of the Federal Reserve, have they ever helped a bank with a stress test?
I don't know what happens in the background, but according to the article, they state that back in 2012, that I think it's all propped up. All of it. But
yeah, in the history of the Fed, they've never helped a bank with a stress test. They've never done that. It's not something they do. That's like, you know what that's like? That's like you're taking it's your high school examination, your finals, and the teacher comes along and says, "Hey, man, here's the deal. You slip me a dime bag of weed, and I'm gonna give you the answers for the test. I'm gonna let you pass." It's like the high school teacher going to the drug dealer at the school and saying, "Hey, listen, here's the deal. You've been a shyster the entire semester. You've been a bully. You've been a con man. You've been a criminal. You've been a delinquent. You've been an absolute derelict your entire time in the school. This final examination that allows you to graduate, I tell you what, here's the deal. I know you're a drug dealer. You're going to sell me some of that good drugs. You're going to sell me some of that good drug. You're going to sell me some coke, maybe some meth. And I'm going to let you pass the test." So the drug dealer is going to be like, "Ooh, deal." Who's not going to take that deal? If the teacher's helping you cheat on the test, who's not going to take that deal, right? So I'm looking at this, and there's something about some boys in Thailand found in a cave 9 days later. Yeah, I can care less. Okay, God bless them. They got found. I'm glad they're happy. But of all the things, is this little article off to the side on today's Wall Street Journal, Tuesday, July the 3rd, 2018. It says this: the Federal Reserve officials told Goldman Sachs Group Incorporated and Morgan Stanley, I'm sorry, not JP Morgan, but Morgan Stanley, that they were about to flunk a portion of their annual stress tests, but offered them a deal to avoid an outright fail and continue paying billions to shareholders. In phone calls to executives of Wall Street, Titans on in phone calls to the executives of the Wall Street Titans on June the 21st, regulators told them, how do you like that, CJ? How do you like this? Regulators told them that to fully pass the test, they would have to cut almost in half the combined $16 billion that they had hoped to pay out to shareholders. According to people familiar with the conversations between the Fed and both banks, but the Fed officials gave the banks an unprecedented option. CJ, I like unprecedented options, don't you? Unprecedented.
Yes,
if they
absolutely.
agreed, yeah, man. If they agreed to freeze their payouts at recent levels, they would get a, quote, conditional non-objection grade and avoid the black eye of failure. That meant the banks could pay out a combined of $13 billion, or about $5 billion more than what they would have given back to investors if they had decided to retake the test and get a passing grade. It would also boost a profitability measure that helps determine how much Goldman chief executive Lloyd Blankfein and Morgan Stanley CEO James Gorman are paid. The arrangement is the first of its kind in the Fed's annual tests, and one of the clearest signs to date of a significant shift in, let me switch to page A2, a significant switch in the regulatory environment for banks, which have been expecting a gentler approach from Washington ever since the election of President Donald Trump. New refs, new rules. The consulting firm PricewaterhouseCoopers LLP wrote in a note. This round of tests was the first granted by the Trump appointment Randall Quarles, a former Wall Street lawyer and private equity executive who later became the Fed's regulatory czar. This year's stress test followed the same notifications process as in the past years. All the firms were notified of the results and given the fixed option to reduce their capital payouts with no negotiations, a Fed spokesperson said. Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley had failed had failed the quantitative portion of the exercise, which tests whether banks' capital levels stay above regulatory requirements. A qualitative portion looks at a more subjective questions, including the quality of the bank's internal data or the board of directors. The Fed's willingness to compromise contrasts with its hard line of recent years. In 2014, for example, the regulator blindsided Citigroup Incorporated with a failing grade, leaving executives were scrambling to address the Fed's concerns. And the same year, Utah-based Zions Bancorp also failed on quantitative backgrounds, like Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley, the firm. Think about this for a second. Okay, there's the article goes on, and there's a lot of juice here in this article. There's a lot of juice here in this article if you know how to properly squeeze it out. There's a lot of juice here. Let me explain something to you guys. Okay, they're on the brink, and I'll tell you why they were all of a sudden given a free pass by the Federal Reserve that failed Deutsche Bank. Okay. Now, we're gonna run through a couple scenarios.
Break it down, V. Break it down.
Couple of scenarios, okay? Scenario A. Let's deal with this first. The Fed gave them a passing grade. They knew they were about to fail. And they're about to fail the quantitative part or the quantitative portion of that stress test. Now, what is the quantitative portion? Now, some of you might think to yourselves who've been very acute to these things throughout the last several years, you would know that quantitative has something to do with money. It has something to do with, quantitative easing. There's a lot of, similar lingo there. But it has to do with money. It has to do with liquidity. I want you to think about this for a second. Goldman Sachs does the dirty work of the Feds. Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan, and to a lesser degree, Morgan Stanley, they do the dirty work of the Fed. A lot of the things that are happening with mortgage-backed securities, a lot of the shenanigans with the bonds, a lot of the things that are going on in the derivatives and the repurchasing order market, the repo markets, right? A lot of the back-end chicanery is done with Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan. Okay. Now let me ask you this. If the henchmen, which are these two prominent Wall Street firms, these two titans on Wall Street, if they received a failing grade from the Fed, CJ, what would that do to the market?
It would collapse it, V. It would definitely impact it. Not collapse it, but definitely impact it. It would, 10-12% down at least.
Huge, right? So, CJ, let me ask you this: if these two titans on Wall Street, these two the biggest I banks on Wall Street, okay, if they get a failing grade on the quantitative portion, meaning they don't have the liquidity to make ends meet, they don't have the money to really pay out anybody, do they? No. So if they fail that portion, CJ, do you think that it will impact the narrative of quote unquote the economy is improving?
Bingo. Boom.
Do you think that somehow this will cause a chain reaction, that there will be a massive sell-off in Wall Street, that there will be an exit to the doors, that there will be some dumping of Goldman Sachs stock, similar to what we're seeing with Tesla? I'd say so. And folks, now what should make you shudder? What should make you shudder is this. If Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley are failures in the quantitative portion of the stress test, and Deutsche Bank outright failed, guess who's connected with Deutsche Bank? Pray tell. See, you want to take a guess on that?
Why Matt? Goldman, Morgan, potentially J.P. Morgan.
Mm-hmm. Huge. This is from January 2018. This is, again, something that CJ and I were not prepared for, but this is the way things are going. As the spiritual lead, Goldman Sachs' stealth takeover of Deutsche Bank could soon be complete. Banker neck, a reorganized thing. Deutsche Bank isn't the first bank to draft in Goldman Sachs veterans to turn it around, and it won't be the last. Bank of America did a good job of channeling an ex-Goldman staff in its hour of need and still has many positions of power. But while Bank of America hired in plenty of ex-Goldman staff to market its business under Montag, it's never actually been run by someone from Goldman Sachs. So suggests the German newspaper Handelsblatt, following Friday's admission that Deutsche is expected to make a small loss for 2017 and that sales and trading revenues at the German bank fell 22% in the fourth quarter of 2017 compared to the year earlier. Handelsblatt says the pressure on Deutsche's CEO, the former CEO, John Crine, is increasing. And this is right, articles written right before Crine left. It doesn't help that Cerberus Capital. Oh, there's that name again. CJ, who is one of the heads of Cerberus Capital, the three-headed hound of hell? Do you remember this guy? He was an asshole. He's from Massachusetts.
No, V, go ahead.
He tried to run for Secretary of State, and then Donald Trump says,
Mitt Romney, our favorite, yeah.
The vulture capitalist firm Cerberus. Okay. Cerberus. The distressed private equity fund with a 3% stake in Deutsche is set to be pressing for results. Now, watch this, of course, right? Watch this. Deutsche Bank shares fell, right? It's in serious problems, right? And what they're looking for the last several years, at least since last year, CJ, what they have been looking for is really Goldman Sachs to take it over. Deutsche Bank AG's management upheaval may be the final blow to the embattled lenders ambitious to go head-to-head with Goldman Sachs Group and international investment. Last year, I spoke about Deutsche Bank, and I said, you know what? And I wrote about this in Rogue Money when I used to write articles, but now I'm so lazy, I'd rather talk about the things that I want to write about. But last year I said this. I said, and I forgot the exact names. In fact, Jim Willey actually quoted me on one of his reports speaking about Goldman Sachs. And this was sometime last year. Is when I received word that, there's about 5 people, CJ, whose exact names I can't remember right now today, but I will go back into my notes and try to find it at a later portion. But there's 5 individuals, okay? 3 from Goldman, 2 from Nomura Capital. These, I call them the 5 vultures of death, okay? Or I call them the 5 horsemen of apocalypse. This team of 5, they descended months and months and months, about a year or so before Bear Stearns went belly up. And they were instrumental in carving up Bear Stearns and selling her piecemeal to J.P. Morgan, to Goldman Sachs, to Nomura, to anybody that wanted it. They were very instrumental. I reported that this team of 5, which is the death team, which these are the wraiths of Wall Street. These are the 5 people that you would contact in order to scalp up, in order to carve up your bank because it's gone terminal. It's gone terminal. These 5 people last year showed up at Deutsche Bank. And voila. This year's stress test, Deutsche Bank failed. Goldman Sachs should have failed as well. But Goldman was given a reprieve. Why? Because Goldman, under the Basel III regulations, is deemed a quote-unquote strategically significant institution. A strategically significant institution. In other words, Goldman is so vital to the modus operandi of the banksters to have it removed, to have it damaged, to have it any way, shape, or form damaged, tarnished, or any sort of lack of confidence. Because let me tell you something, folks, fractional reserve banking is nothing but a confidence game. It is a con. It is a confidence game played by confidence men. Con men. If Goldman loses confidence, or if people loses confidence in Goldman, that is a problem. So the bankers are doing what they can to keep their strategic vital interests afloat. Now, watch this now. Deutsche Bank is about to die. I've been saying it for years. I've been saying it since 2012. It's gone terminal since then. They've kept Deutsche Bank alive through electronic duct tape. They kept it alive through electronic band-aids. They kept it alive through various electronic and digital prosthetics that kept this thing walking along like a zombie. But the electronic systems are to the point that it's gone mission critical. They cannot sustain Deutsche Bank anymore. They cannot sustain it. Goldman is positioned. I want you to think about this. If Goldman received a failing grade on the quantitative portion of the stress test, and they failed, not only would there be market problems, not only would there be a market drop, not only would there be a sell-off in Goldman Sachs stock, but check this out, CJ. And I need you folks to listen carefully. If Goldman failed, it would have caused a serious question on its positioning in the buyout, in the bankruptcy and fire sale of Deutsche Bank and its assets. Goldman wouldn't be able to absorb it. And if Goldman is not able to absorb it, the Fed is not able to absorb it. Do you see what I'm saying? Goldman was being groomed so that when Deutsche collapses, Goldman will be the American firm representative, either working under proxy, under an assumed corporate name that just magically appears. They've done that before with various other operations, believe you me, and they just pop up in Germany as, I don't know, Zuffenhausen AG, who knows? Whatever crazy name you could, Wiener Schnitzel's Wiener Schnitzel SA or Wiener Schnitzel GmbH, whatever the hell you want to call it. And all of a sudden, Wiener Schnitzel GmbH buys out the significant portions of Deutsche Bank. And everybody's wondering, who is Wiener Schnitzel GmbH? Who is that? Oh, they belong to the holding companies Spatzel and Kraut. Spatzel and Kraut SA. Who owns Spratzel and Kraut SA? It's Goldman Sachs. Goldman was being positioned to absorb Deutsche, and then whatever assets it had, it was to siphon it to its Federal Reserve Board member banks. Vulture capitalism, folks, at work. Vulture capitalism. That's scenario A. Scenario B, and this is the wild one. This is for all you QAnon believers out there, is that this is some grandiose strategy plan in order that we are breaking away from the banker networks, and it's a way to kick the cabal in the nuts and let Deutsche Bank fail, and let the European Union go into ruin and whatnot. That's scenario B. But the point of the matter is, no matter if it's scenario A or scenario B, the EU is done. The EU is done. You see, folks, the real thing is this: if Goldman Sachs would have failed, if Morgan Stanley would have failed, you and I would have been singing a different tune this morning on Wall Street. It would have been a different attitude. The whole headlines would not even matter. We wouldn't be talking about Umberto and Guillermo on the border who's been sleeping in a detention center. We would not be talking about some kids from the border. We would not be talking about that. We would not be talking about civil war and any other distractive topics. What we would have been talking about, holy crap, there's been a massive sell-off in Wall Street. Oh my God, Goldman Sachs stock is down 5%. That's what we would have been talking about. That is a different tune. That is a different tune. And that's what I have to say about this. This is a very significant piece of information. Nobody's talking about it. And this is off on a little piece right here on the paper, one of the papers of you know what? I mean, Wall Street Journal is not perfect. It really isn't. But it is far better than the New York Times. Far better than the Washington Post. At least there is some conservatives that do write for the Wall Street Journal. But you can get some inside ideas if you know how to read between the lines and squeeze it for the information. Unbelievable, folks. Unbelievable.
It truly is. It truly is.
No one's talking about it. Nobody's talking about it. You know, apart from this article, I haven't seen it anywhere.
Well, I think you know why? Because I think in part it requires a lot more intellect other than just the sensationalizing over the border and kids and things like that. I mean, if the left could count on any bit of intelligence of their demographics, whatever, they'd be able to talk about these things, but they wouldn't understand it.
Yep.
They wouldn't understand it because you know that they would be playing this whole card about, oh, look, since Trump's taken over, he's in bed with the banks. He's, giving favorable rules and all this stuff. That's what you'd be hearing, nonstop. But who's touching it? No one.
Exactly, my man. Shifting gears, Siege. Shifting gears. This is what a war criminal looks like, my man. Do we have Tickle My Butt is doing the work of where John McCain, his boyfriend has left off. This is what Tickle My Butt is picking up the slack over here. Is that what's going on?
This is just, whenever I saw this, it just was infuriating. I can't believe that I'm witnessing this and why he's not being called out. Let me bring it up real quick. I had shut down the browsing. Yeah. So Senator Graham decided to pick up the slack for John McCain, and Senator Graham has made an unexpected trip to Syria, and he's attacking Trump's plan to pull troops out. Made a surprise visit to Syria on Monday, stopping off at the city of Manbij, which is held by the U.S. and Turkish forces. Graham delivered a speech clearly designed to attack the idea of a U.S. pullout from Syria. There is no official plan for the U.S. withdrawal. However, the Pentagon officials have been presenting the U.S. military presence in Syria as open-ended, and that's not to say that Graham comments had no reason for that. So I have to ask specifically why Graham is taking it upon himself. I'm sure that he will remember this picture soon, much like the one with John McCain, with now known, basically terrorist in Syria. But yeah, this is what people who crimes against humanity, people that commit treason against it, and he needs to be called out for it. This is just insane, V.
I mean, look at this a-hole, this human rectal orifice, the man known as Lindsey Tickle My Butt Graham. Oh, it just tickles me, CJ. It just tickles me when I think about dropping bombs on helpless civilians. It just tickles me it tickles me so much. Tickle My Butt Graham. Here's Tickle My Butt. Tickle My Butt says that the U.S. needs to stay here to help, and that it would be, quote unquote, terrible if the U.S. didn't have any troops in Syria in the future. You see, why are we in Syria to help? We are right now, people don't realize this, because of the new advancements in shale technology, because of the new advancements in natural gas exploration and extraction, the United States is becoming the energy powerhouse of the world. We can literally save the petrodollar based on not Saudi pipelines, but based upon our natural gas wells. We don't need to have a place in the Middle East anymore. They could have it. But these old hawk neocons, these idiots that just won't go away. Lindsey Graham, who was like herpes. Lindsey Graham is the genital herpes on the body politic. Lindsey Graham and the neocons and the neolibs and the Zionists, all these guys are genital herpes on the body politic. There is no reason for the United States to be in Syria. There's no reason to have us have a true presence there in a very dangerous part of the world. But for Tickle My Butt Graham, who has no skin in the game, he's happy to go there. He's happy to, like, who is he? You are a senator of a podunk state in South Carolina. You are a senator of South Carolina. What the hell are you doing? Nobody called you to be an ambassador. Nobody called you to international diplomacy. Sir, you are in violation of the Logan Act. Why don't somebody hammer these idiots? What gives you? You are a senator from South Carolina, not even one of the more populous states, not even one of the states with the most booming economy. You're a nobody on the grand scheme of things, Senator Graham. Who or what gives you the right to travel to these war zones and to speak on behalf of the American public? Do you see the mayor of Paris, CJ, going to Syria, speaking to French troops? No. Do you see the MP, the Minister of Parliament, for the UK, for one of the British parties, and going into I don't know, Mozambique or Afghanistan and giving a lecture to UK-backed rebels over there? No other country in the world. Do you see the judicator for the Fukushima prefecture in Japan out there talking to some or cutting deals with foreign act? No. Do you see this? This crap never happened before. I never read about this in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, or the early aughts, of senators and congressmen traveling to other countries speaking on behalf of what appears to be America. Like, whose interest are you serving? I've never seen such stupidity like this. I've never seen anything like this before.
Yeah, what area of national defense does Syria entail with the United States? What is the implication? What is the threat? Obviously Graham sits on numerous committees. He sits up with John McCain on the Armed Services Committee. But what part of that is the threat to the United States that Syria has? I don't understand why he's making this trip. What does this trip represent, other than just there to try to build a coalition to keep these quote unquote moderate rebels going in this area? It's counterproductive. I don't understand it. He's not an ambassador. It just, again, there's no reason for him to be there other than just trying to stir things up, keep this thing going, keep them optimistic in their efforts to please stay here, please do this part. We're going to try to support you. We're going to fund you. Just absolutely ridiculous, V.
It is insane. Why is the senator from South Carolina meeting with Syrian rebels? Is South Carolina a country? Does South Carolina have some sort of strategic alliance with said rebel group? Does it? Like, I've never seen this before. I've never seen, dude. This is not the Secretary of State. This is not the ambassador to Syria. This is not anybody. This is not the National Security Advisor. This is not the Secretary of Defense. Like, who is this rectal orifice? Like, who is this turd? This guy's a nut job. And he's doing the same thing that his boyfriend, John McCain, has done. Doing the same thing. Meanwhile, CJ, let's close off with this one. Meanwhile, in the land of adults, and you all, if you've been following me, you all know what I mean by that. The land of adults. CJ, what's going on in the land of adults?
Yeah, so Shanghai kicks off the One Belt, One Road Expo, and we just what's that?
What did you say? The One Belt, One Road Expo?
The One Belt, One Road Expo. Absolutely.
That must be some small thing, right? Maybe like maybe 3 or 4 little mom and pop shops, and maybe 1 or 2 African countries that nobody's heard of. Is that who showed up, Siege?
Yeah, just a tune of over 40 countries and 200 companies, just nothing major.
What? What? You got to be kidding me.
Yeah, just truly amazing. Just to break it down, there's another site I'll click on and bring it on. But when you take a look at the amount of growth, the planned, the transparency, the involvement of the Silk Road, and the economic development that's proposed, just the significance around it in terms of the shifts that's occurring, V. And when you look through those representative countries, you look through those representative companies that are there, you see actually no representation at all from the United States. I can dig in deeper, but I don't even think we sent one representative there to be involved with this expo.
No, we can't. See, how can we send a representative? We have to make sure. We were busy making sure that Goldman Sachs passes its stress test. Remember, man, trust the plan.
Trust the plan. But obviously, this is the future of that. The Silk Road, the corridor that could really help the United States, and whether Trump and Putin meeting allows an opportunity to discuss some of those things. But it's just truly amazing, some of the innovation, some of the growth that's going to occur. And that's something that, like, for me, be in terms of understanding what, Iran is about, the Syria thing, and looking at the corridor of the new Silk Road, it just leads me to believe that Iran is nothing but an attempt to disrupt this economic growth plan.
Oh, yeah. Iran, Syria, Libya, all of it is basically trying to throw speed bumps and roadblocks on the new Silk Road. I mean, look how heinous these guys, these leaders of Silk Road. Look, you want to hear some of the evil things that they're saying on the One Belt, One Road initiative?
Let's hear it.
Dude, I'm going to give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's like 7 points here. I'll make it quick. Evil objective number 1. Are you ready for this? Evil objective number 1, folks. We stand for enhancing international cooperation, including the Belt and Road Initiative and various development strategies, by building closer collaboration partnerships, which include advancing North-South and South-South, the triangular cooperation. We reiterate the importance of expanding economic growth and trade and investment beyond a level playing field on market rules and on universally recognized international norms. We welcome the promotion of industrial cooperation, scientific and technological innovation, and regional economic cooperation and integration so as to increase inter alia the integration and participation of micro, small, and medium enterprises in global value chains. Attention should be paid to tax and fiscal policies. Tax policies that prioritize growth and productive investment. Evil. They want to make it a very tax-friendly thing, CJ. How can we stand for this? Oh, my God. Evil policy number 3. You ready for this, man? Therefore, the strengthening of physical, institutional, and people-to-people connectivity among all countries. The least developed countries, landlocked developing countries, small island developing states, and middle-income countries deserve special attention to remove bottlenecks of development and achieve effective connectivity. Incredibly evil. Listen to this heinous plan, this evil plan, CJ. They endeavor to expand people-to-people exchanges, promote peace, justice, social cohesion, inclusiveness, democracy, good governance, the rule of law, human rights, gender equality, women improvement, work together to fight against corruption and bribery in all their forms. China does that. They throw their billionaires in prison. That's what they do. They don't give them golden parachutes and say, "Hey, thank you for running this company to the ground. Have a nice life." No, they throw you in jail for fiscal corruption charges. They don't play around over there. We need to learn from that. To be more responsive to all the needs of those vulnerable situations as children, persons with disabilities, older persons, and help improve the global economic governance and ensure equal access by all to the development opportunities and benefits. We are determined to protect the planet from degradation, including taking urgent action, encouraging all parties that are ratified, and managing resources in a sustainable manner. We encourage the involvement of governments, international, regional organizations, the private sector, civil society, and citizens in fostering and promoting friendship, mutual understanding, and trust. We uphold the spirit of peace, cooperation, openness, transparency, inclusiveness, equality, mutual learning, mutual benefit, mutual respect by strengthening cooperation on the basis of extensive consultation and the rule of law. Joint efforts shared benefits and equal opportunities for all. In this context, we highlight these principles as our guiding cooperation. Wow. That is about the most heinous, evil thing I've ever read, CJ. But that is a far cry from we came, we saw, he died. American foreign policy in a nutshell. The New Silk Road. The New Silk Road is China's foreign policy on display. And if you look at China, that they're a bunch of crazy communist central control freaks, you miss the entire boat. You cannot look at China with Western eyes. You could only look at China from China's eyes, from the eyes of the people. They are winning the world without firing a single bullet. In the last 50 years, we've spent close to 30 trillion. Count this, folks. $30 trillion on foreign expansion, on wars, on bridges to nowhere. $30 trillion. You know what that is, folks? That is 5 generations worth of wealth. And then today we bitch and complain about our station on this planet. If we don't get back to who we are, if we don't get back to the very core fundamentals of what made this country great, we could never be great again. The battle lines of the 2016 elections, that was just the drawing of the battle lines. Now the wars have to be fought in order. And I'm not talking about violent revolution or anything like that. I'm just talking about the ideological war that we should not be falling asleep here. We should push all the way. Let's get this country back. Because I'm telling you right now, I believe this. We are the most creative, most enterprising sons of bitches on the face of this planet. We were the captain's industry. We were some of the best businessmen and best salesmen on earth. It is time we get back to that. It's time we expand our industries. It's time we expand who we are as a people. We can't be sitting on the sideline watching China have all the fun and making all the money. And that's what I got to say, Siege.
Well said, V. Well said.
And with that being said, I'm over and out.